My name is Kai Heinze, and I teach classical and early Christian studies here at Our Lady Seat of Wisdom. And in today's episode of Why Study, I want to pose the question, why study in a classroom with teachers and other students? There are lots of good books in this world. What if you just sat at home in the comfort of your armchair and read lots of good books? It would be a lot cheaper and a lot more comfortable. It's a big hassle to go to a university. Why should we do it? You might say, well, I want a credential at the end, or I need some evaluation to help motivate me, but we could solve that problem. At the end of each semester, after you've read a lot of books, you could come here and we could give you an exam and a piece of paper at the end of your degree. So why go to a classroom? Is it just because that's what we've always done? So we just keep doing it and we don't have the courage to change? Well, in fact, I do think there are a number of reasons that classrooms can be helpful. I don't think they always are, but they have the possibility of being helpful. And I want to talk about a few of those today. First of all, books don't know you. Books can't answer your questions. Not all of them, at least. When an author writes a book, the author has a perceived audience. They try to think about what you need to know, what your questions are, and what you need to be told. But the problem is, they're not always right. You often have questions that the books don't answer. And in fact, that can be true of teachers too. Maybe we've all had this experience of being in a classroom and the teacher goes on and on about all kinds of things that we already know that seem obvious to us. But the one thing that we need to know, that we don't understand, the teacher doesn't touch on. So this can happen in classrooms too, but in a good classroom where there's free communication between student and teacher, you at least have the opportunity to overcome that. A teacher can, in the right situation, know your questions, hear your questions, and answer them. A teacher can sometimes identify the things that you don't understand, and then pinpoint those so you really make progress. I heard a teacher once say that true teaching is the act of connecting the existential questions of students with the material that those students are studying. And I think that's very profound. We have life questions, big questions, and those of us who study the liberal arts want to pose those questions to the great saints and thinkers of the past. We don't want to live alone. These people have gone before us in the journey of life and have had experiences that we will never have, and thoughts that we wouldn't think on our own. We want to benefit from those people, hear their answers to our questions. But the problem is those people, those books, can be rather inaccessible, hard to connect with our own lives because they're in such a different culture, a different time period, a different historical context. And ideally, a teacher can help connect student questions, life questions, with the topic that they're studying, with these great thinkers of the past. But what's interesting is that to do that, the teacher has to not only know the subject. We think of teachers needing to know the subject that they're teaching, and they do. But they also have to know the students that they're teaching, because if you're going to connect these two things, you've got to know both of them. That doesn't always happen, but you have an opportunity for it to happen in a classroom, especially one where there are not too many students and there's a lot of free communication. Well, that might be a reason that it's useful to have a teacher, but what about fellow students? Are they just an annoyance along the way, or friends perhaps? Well, yes, they can be friends, but I think there's something more than that going on. When you read a certain book, let's say, you react to it in a certain way, and you notice certain things. Other things you're blind to. Other things you don't notice, and your reaction is only one among many. When you read a book with a group of fellow learners, you learn not just how you react, but how they react. And to really know a subject or a perspective or a book is to know how other people react as well as how you react and what the author originally meant. But also, everyone comes with different perspectives. They see different things. God gave us 4 Gospels that give us different perspectives on Christ, and that's a useful thing. And similarly, when you study a book with a group of people, you hear perspectives, you see things through their eyes that you would never have seen on your own. And that's an enlightening experience. And how are you going to use the things that you learn? Sometimes you're going to use them in conversations in the future with friends, with family, with other with people that you're dialoguing with. So practicing talking about things with your fellow students is part of the experience, part of what's preparing you for the future. And then finally, I think that God has made us to be communal learners, to be people who learn things in companionship with others. When I was in high school, my brother and I were teaching a course on chemistry to some younger boys, and we didn't really know chemistry. So in the days before these classes, we would get out this book and try to learn stuff together. And that was it was a hard experience, but it was really fun. There's nothing like that kind of experience of suffering and laughing together and figuring stuff out and the victory at the end. And there's a certain joy in learning things together in community. If you see something wonderful or something shocking, let's say you're driving along the road and suddenly there's a bull moose standing in the middle of the road, you immediately want to share it with somebody. You know, when you get home, you text your friend, you tell them about what happened, because it's more fun when you're experiencing it with others. If you were like Robinson Crusoe, marooned alone on a deserted island, and you saw something wonderful like a pod of whales going by, it wouldn't be as much fun because you couldn't share it with others. There is a camaraderie in the suffering of learning, a camaraderie in the joy of discovery. God made us to live in community. And I think that is not just a psychological fact, but actually something at the center of our faith. For Catholics, the goal of life is ultimately the beatific vision, to enjoy the beauty and goodness of God. Do other Christians factor into this? In the end, do we just sort of stand alone viewing the beauty of God? Well, if you're someone like St. Augustine, then you think that it's precisely that focus on the beauty of God that brings you into special fellowship and friendship with your fellow Christian. It is when 2 people focus on the same joy, experience the same discovery, love the same thing, that they are drawn together in a special friendship that touches upon the transcendent. When we learn something together and experience a mutual joy and discovery, even a mutual suffering in the learning process, we are practicing for heaven. We experience a tiny foretaste of the fellowship in discovery and adventure and learning and contemplation that we will have, the fellowship we will have with each other on that final day.